the Board of Trustees to order, and we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please call the roll.
Trustee Mathis.
Here.
Trustee Jordan.
Here.
Trustee Tiger. Trustee Gonzalez.
Here. I'm here too. Item number 3 is privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here who wishes to be heard at privilege of the floor? Seeing none, I'll close that, and we'll move on to item number 4, which is a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application to the New York State DEC Urban and Community Forestry Grants Program for a tree survey for the village. So there's a couple phases to this survey. There's no cost to the village for this survey at all. There's no cost share to the village, and the engineering company that's writing the grant for us is doing so for free on condition that they get the job of administering the grant, which is paid out of the grant funds. So,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I'll just finish it off by saying that would be phase 1, so that would be the inventory of the trees. And then from there, that would allow us to apply for monies to do tree removal and replacement as well. Anything else, Andrew?
That second round would have a match, but it would be, I think they do them every 2 years. So but you have to have the plan first. So that's a good thing to have. You can tie it into complete streets. And then if we decide to move forward with replacement or maintenance, there's a match involved with that. But this one is a full, it's 100% grant.
All right, so item number 5 is authorize McDonald Engineering to apply for an engineering planning grant for the sanitary sewer force main in an amount not to exceed $1,000. So the reason that we're asking for this is because we have the EFC grant, which was to redo our sewer pump station, tear down the old sewage treatment plant and decommission the outfall there, and then do some repair work on the Burr Bridge abutment that's being torn apart. There was a little miscommunication between EFC and DEC. They were linking the work on the sewage treatment plant to the repair to the Burr Bridge, and it started getting messy. And then they started linking that to the force main that goes under the river that feeds our effluent to Schenectady. So they're insisting that at some point we do a study on that force main, which I guess makes sense. But it's holding up the whole works for the EFC monies and everything else. So if we get the application in the works, it'll start to move DEC to work more with EFC.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that one? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we know that we had the resignation of Brian Rush. He went on to actually start his own business, and the way civil service works. What was Brian's
It was
position?
motor, MEOM.
Okay. So to replace him, you move people up in promotional status. That will vacate finally a laborer, which is the lowest level of employment for us. Andrew's setting up interviews right now to fill the laborer's position, and then at next month's meeting, we would look to fill that, and then we would be back at full staff. So item number 6 is a resolution to promote Ryan Kesher to the position of MEO medium.
Make a motion.
Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then item 7 is to promote Ricky Quick to the position of MEO light.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 8, I didn't send you a note on, but it's to sign a contract for, is this to replace the copier down in the office? It's actually at a reduced price, and the next one is for the maintenance, which is a lower price than the one we had, so. Anybody care to authorize me to sign a contract with the Lang Langdon for the copy for the mayor's office, or for the clerk's office?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that one? Someone a statement?
No, I said no. I said no.
Gonna get a second.
Okay.
But, Chris, is that at the same price we were paying before, or what's the deal?
The lease payment I was paying before was 201.
The old lease payment was 201, and the new lease payment is 180.
I had budgeted the 201 because I wasn't sure whether it was planned the same.
Any other discussion? Do we have a motion in a second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then item number 9 is to sign a contract with Repeat Business Systems for maintenance for the county.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10, are my comments. Chief Baldwin and I went to a meeting of the town fire chiefs last night regarding the proposed training facility. I would say it was interesting, and Ken, as I go through this, if you want to chime in, go right ahead. But every fire district in the town was represented at the meeting, and I would say each fire district had a unique concern about what was going on with the training center. In most cases, I think that they felt that they didn't have enough information to say they would or would not be a part of it. But in each case, they needed more information on a different thing. So in the end, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but you have the fire chiefs, but each district is governed by a board of commissioners. So in the end, the commissioners that were present decided that they would get together, all of them, so that they had a unified voice, and try to address the concerns. And the biggest one was long-term. So after the 5 years, what happens? Who's going to pay for the maintenance of this? And apparently when you do a real training center and have like these simulated burners that have propane and this and that, you can't just flip the switch and light it when you go out there. There has to be an actual person. And in most cases, you have an employee that is salaried that maintains these things. So those were things that weren't addressed, and they wanted addressed before they said they were going to put money into something that would not really be useful until those things were done. So they took my name, put it on the list too, so I'm assuming I'm going to be in that conversation. And what do you think, Ed? I think maybe we're stalled for a little while here.
Yeah, I think so. Like the mayor said, there's not enough information, both of what monies are required and just a total plan. And it's good to have everybody at the table from all the departments, so they all heard everything at the same time. Before that, it was just splinters here and there. And there's a lot of concern about how this is going to go on. Everybody supports the idea, but it needs to be done the right way, and so we're going to work through it. It's going to be a long, tedious process, I think.
Which then brings us to District 4. So I had breakfast with the supervisor last Thursday, and we discussed a whole array of things. We decided that we would table the discussion of District 4 and the training center until after the meeting that we just had last night. So I'll be contacting the supervisor to see if he's interested in continuing talks on the District 4 contract. I got a request from Lewis. We've got a situation in the village where, you know, it's a buyer's market now, or seller's market now for housing. So what's happening now is these bank-owned properties are being sold, and in a lot of cases they're being sold to people that want to flip them. So they'll buy them, fix them up, and then it's such a seller's market. You know, it's a good business model. Unfortunately, some of the people that are doing that are getting these houses and going in and working with no permits. And in one particular case, it's happened on several occasions, and Lewis has gone, done stop work order, and he goes back to finding it still working again. But there's really no consequence. So he's proposing that we institute a fee or for rescinding the stop work order. So you get a stop work order, and then And then when work is allowed to start again,
When you apply for your
when
permit.
you apply for your permit, you have to pay a fee for working without a permit, essentially. So Lydia figured out what the legalities of it is, and I don't know if you want to explain it better than I did.
So, we have fees for many things along the way with building permits, so this would be a fee to lift the stop work order. So you get your building permit, and that's a fee, but attached to it would be a fee to rescind. And I think the idea is really just for people who are kind of egregious and just keep violating it.
So no decision tonight, there'll be a topic for our next work session, but I just wanted you to have it in your mind that this was something you're looking at. Please, in your calendar, reserve August 16th. That's the workshop for our Complete Streets. I'm not sure. I'm asking to reserve right now because I have to talk to the person from CDTC. I'm not sure that you'll be needed at that because it's the scoping session. And we'll set the date for the actual workshop, but I'll let you know if anybody wants to be at it. You can hear what the scoping session is.
Where, what time?
I'll email it to you. I believe it's at 9 o'clock, but I don't want to have you write it down because I'll be wrong. We all know the splash pad is open. I know Trustee Mathis got the same question I did. Why does it have the compressed hours? So I'll just say it for the record, at this point the project is not complete. The sod is still taking hold and getting itself rooted. There's 8 picnic tables that have to be installed. A number of trees still have to be planted. So we've compressed the hours to give our guys time to work on it and also to make sure that we can keep the new sod saturated so that it can take place. So when the whole project is done and stabilized, then we'll go to our regular hours.
So we did, Chris, to expand it from 10 to 6 to 10 to 7 now.
Okay.
And it would be my recommendation that we would stay at that because that gives us morning for 2 hours. We've had to do some stuff, we have to do something tomorrow morning to do some work on the splash pad before it opens. And then that limits the usage from the water. And 7 o'clock is when we used to close the beach, when the beach was open anyway, so.
From the people I've heard from, I think that's going to make them happier because it was the people that got home from work and wanted to bring their kids that were most concerned, so that's good. Okay. I had mentioned this to you guys in passing at our last meeting, but I just want to mention again at a formal meeting. The library, you might have seen in the newspaper, is moving forward with this project to rehab the library. The county's moving forward with the project to rehab the library. It would be a 2-phase project. The first project would be an actual structural and facade rehab. And then once that's accomplished, they're looking at doing this, maybe of an atrium or something attached to the library to increase its size. So as we get more details, I'll let you know. Reminder that our first meeting of the facilities committee is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. If you can make it, I would love the full committee to see the full board there to cheer them on. And
What time's first?
7 o'clock upstairs in fire. Andrew, Maria, and I were on we did a conference call on our LED lighting project. So I just wanted to give you an update of where that is. So the light audit is fully complete, where they've gone through and they've done an inventory of all the lights and they've got the lumens that come off each light and all that sort of thing. They're now going through the interviews with contractors to select who will actually be doing the work for the project. But the scope and engineering are all done. We're waiting for a buyback number from National Grid. And when that number comes in, then this board will be asked for which model of financing we want to do. So remember that the financing is paid back from the savings realized in the lighting, so we're not going to come out of our pocket. Our options are to either bond it or do a municipal lease. So bonding tends to come with a little bit lower of an interest rate. The advantage of the lease is that it doesn't count towards your debt rating. Our debt rating is very good, so Maria's opinion is that if we get a better rate by bonding, that's the direction we should go. My question to SmartWalk was, what is our savings going to be, what's the projection for our savings? And they don't have that number for us. So we've got literally months before any decision needs to be made, but that's where we are, and the conversation's going on so that we make the best decision possible. Anything else on that, Andrew?
No, I think we'll see, I think we're shooting for like a sort of first of the year's, like, start to the actual construction of the project. Because there's a lot of approvals and reviews, but if you remember, I think it was like a 3 month construction time, I want to say.
Something like that.
So, you know, we're within a year of it being complete, I think.
Do they put one up? Do they like put one up so you can see what it looks like, or have they done that?
Yes, yep, so, when we met, they did a pre-bid meeting with 3 contractors. So they're going to, once they get pricing from them, they will pick a spot where they can put up a couple different color
I
temperatures.
assume it's gonna be in the DPW yard.
It's probably a good spot, or maybe down by Chris's house, I don't know, but, and then we can kind of choose, you know, they'll probably do 2, maybe 3, but then we can pick a time to go out and choose which one we want.
Can I get the one on my street like a color wheel, so when I have my parties, I can.
You want like a green and yellow.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. All right, in response to some questions asked by this group at our last work session, I met with Andrew, and he is modifying the notices that are sent out by our property maintenance guy to have sections that address parking on the front lawn, right-of-way obstruction, blocking the sidewalk, and visually blocking intersections. So there'll be spots there too.
Yeah.
So, sorry, so Don does the citation, so we've got one notice for Don that is things that DPW can address, which is high grass, a couple other things. I'm sorry, I'm kind of drawing a blank. And then there's another notice for parking on the front lawn and blocking the sidewalk, which says it'll be referred to the building inspector or the police department. And we've actually had some decent success with that. I've got 2 that were cited, because that's not something that I can resolve, that called and said, I'm going to have it gone by this date. So that's promising. The only thing I have to do is add the part about sight lines like at corners. I have to add that part, so that can be something that's checked off on. But we've cited almost 200 properties this year, so I think we're doing pretty good. And it's slowing down because nothing's growing. Growing.
I met with, actually, Pete, Andrew, and I met with Kevin Burmaster, who has taken the lead now on the Rotary project for repainting the Franks Bridge, and kind of did a little bit of a restart. So where it is left right now is Kevin Burmaster was given information to contact Pan Am. The first thing we need to actually get the ball rolling would be something in writing from Pan Am saying that they will allow us to work on their bridge and that they approve the project that's being done on the bridge, and what, if any, requirements they're going to have as far as spotters or whatever. So once Kevin gets that in place and we have that documentation in hand, then we'll go to DOT, and that should not be a tough stretch to get, because it's already been looked at and planned and everything else. So when everything's ready, it'll get done. So
We're gonna repaint it and sign it? Is that what it is?
repaint it, and then the proposal is to put these appliques on it that are graffiti proof. So the question is probably, and nobody knows, so very likely Pan Am won't have an issue with painting the bridge. We don't know if they're going to care if there's the appliques on it or not. So we'll find out. this September, I believe, September or October, our historian is planning on having another concert of musicians of Mallwood like she had last year. And she called me just today, I knew she was planning it, but she called me just today to see if the board is still going to be willing to designate it a village event and accept, I forget what the term is, but a letter of intent or something, we'll say, in lieu of the vendors paying for vending permits. So you remember, as part of her event, she had like tasting from Wolf Hollow and then some artists that did. Yeah. So last year what we said is, you know, since it's a village event, it's promoting the Flint House and whatever, we didn't charge the fees for the vending permits. She wanted to know, not officially, but just on a consensus, would we still consider that because she's trying to line people up and she wants to know what to tell them.
I'm in favor of it.
Okay, I figured we did it last year, so we'll do it.
It was a good turnout too.
Yeah.
Good event.
And then, it's a long list I know, but my last one is, I contacted Amador. Remember, they cut our 2 trees down and tore up the property up there? We sent them a letter saying we wanted restitution. Never heard back from them, so I called the representative from Amador. He emailed me back, and where we are right now is he would like me to resend the invoice for the work that we had done and paid for from DNL, as well as the estimate for the cost of the trees. And he would like to send his own crew to repair the landscaping damage that was done, which Andrew's okay with, so I'll keep going back and forth with the email to see if we actually get a restitution. Those are my comments. Item 11 is correspondence liaison and special committee reports. Trustee Mathis.
Yes, the visionary committee met. Andrew and Jim did an excellent job, along with Tom Capola from the town, explaining to the members of the group what they do and ways that they work together currently and ways that we maybe can improve on working together. And I found it to be a very productive meeting, and I think some good, a good suggestion, starting point has been determined, and more to come on that. I think they're working on it right now, and we should be hearing about it at the next meeting. So, good stuff.
Thank you. Trustee Gifford.
We didn't have a planning board meeting, and the fire department meeting is in 5 minutes.
Might make it.
We did, we had an interesting drill last night in conjunction with Glenville Hills Fire Department, where there was a 2-car accident with one rolled over and one up against, on its side against a tree, and we went and worked with them and cut cars apart and got the fake people out. They're really good. The chief went from his meeting to that.
Thank you.
So, and I want to thank the village for the flowers.
Goes extra care, I know that. Trustee Tiberio.
Nothing to report.
Trustee Rizzo.
We had a meeting at a car show, wrap-up meeting. This year, a lot of, the parking went good. We had more of a crowd. We had about 192 cars in the show. And everybody seemed to be, the vendors seemed to be happy. They sold out a lot of their stuff, so it looks good, and we're working to hope next year will be a little bit better one.
It was
It's
impressive.
really well organized. We're getting real good at it. It's 20 years, we should be good at it.
I told John Pillavani, well after the show, that when people asked me how it went, it was polished this year. Everything seemed smooth, everything went, it was great, so.
It's a good team to hook up with the Elks, because I think that's what we needed there, to get the team together. We also, the Freedom Park, you noticed the first concert was canceled because of the heat. So the concerts are still on their way. They had a couple last week, and they got a couple this week, so that seems to be running pretty good. So that's all I have.
All right. Just want to say, I think that Trustee Tiberio was too modest. So first of all, there was no zoning board meeting this week, but the park camera project is complete, up, running, hooked up. We had our first experimental issue in the park to make sure that everything worked well, and it's a fantastic addition to our Arts and Clues department, so I'm happy about that. Item 12, departmental reports. Any questions or comments for department heads? Anybody care to accept that? Make a partnership?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are the claims?
Make a motion to pay those?
I'll make a second that.
Any discussion? We call the roll on this one?
Trustee Mendoza?
Yes.
Trustee Gifford?
Yes.
Trustee Tigger?
Yes.
Trustee Rizzo?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes. Item 14, approval of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees on May 9th.
Make a motion.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 15, approval of the minutes of the May 30th special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 16 is the minutes of the special meeting of the Board of Trustees on June 5th.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tom, I don't remember which meeting you were at.
I don't either.
I'll note that.
So, well, just noticed an abstention. Usually I go through, so I know, but I forgot. Item 17, approval of the minutes of the June 13th regular meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And item 18, approval of the June 18th special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 19, does anybody have any new business for good of the order?
I'd just like to say, that Donna Boyd and Andrew's crew, apparently you bumped into Ted Fuhrer, and he had concerns about some of the bushes up near the alleyway that were blocking the view. And lo and behold, an hour later, he had them all trimmed and cut down, which he was very pleased. He caught me in the story, told me about it, so he said, make sure you pass it along. And he was really surprised how fast you guys did it, so.
Oh, that's good.
Did a good
It's always
job.
good- It's always good to keep Ted Fuhrer. Right?
Okay, any other new business? You guys got an email from Maria about our liability insurance renewal, and I think she sent you a document. I just want to say, do you remember that we had the conversation about the value of having a company like Cool do our insurances? And so as you see, we paid $100,000 last year. It's down to 94 with the same coverages and actually some increased coverage. And when we get this, they send a crew of 3, and we go through all our policies and our coverage and everything else. And so I'm pretty happy that it's not too many places that see reductions in their insurance costs. So anybody care to authorize that renewal?
Make a motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And just the last statement I wanted to make, because I forgot it, you brought it up because of that vision committee. So, you know, I think for the both of us, it's been kind of a frustrating experience going 11 months without not a lot of progress. But after talking to Jimmy and Andrew and what went on in that meeting, one thing statement that was made by the chair was that she felt that it was heartwarming to see the amount of work that Scotia and Glenville do together in Formland and the stuff that goes on. So a lot of residents don't see that, and as a result, they don't realize that it happens. So I think one positive probably that has come out of this committee is the opportunity for at least some residents to see what we already do together without the formal agreements and that sort of thing. So I appreciate you guys showing up for that. Anything else? Entertains a motion to adjourn.
So be it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was June 5th.